12 spine-chilling gas station encounters, terrifying secrets revealed that will haunt your nights. Sarah's hands trembled as she wiped down the counter, not from the chill of the late October night, but from the stories she had heard. Tales of a thing they called the Watcher, a figure looming in the shadows of the woods that bordered the gas station. She didn't want to believe them, but the flickering fluorescent lights and the dark skyline pressed heavy on her mind. Was it just her fears playing tricks, or was there something lurking beyond the station's cracked walls that watched her every move? The first customer of the night shuffled in, an elderly man with wild eyes. He peered suspiciously over the chipped coffee cup he cradled close to his trembling body. "You watch those trees, Mississippi. Best keep your kids inside tonight," he muttered as he hurried past with a nervous glance over his shoulder, almost as if he feared the darkness would grab him on the way out. Her heart sank. The kids were at home alone, safe from what? The woods? Or something worse? The air thickened, creating a pressure that squeezed at her chest, making her frantic every time the door chimed open. As more customers came and went, they brought additional pieces of dread. The sheriff, with his unsettling smile, lingered at the counter, his eyes too probing, too interested in her life. "Everything okay here, Sarah?" It sounded friendly enough, but she could feel his scrutiny crawling under her skin. What did he know that she didn't? Jacob wandered in next, a former employee with hauntings in his eyes. His presence sent a chill through her. "The old ones," he whispered, half to her, half to the shadows behind her. "They're not just stories." He jerked his head toward the woods, wide-eyed. "They're hungry." Panic clawed at her gut as she fought to dismiss his rambling. But what if there really was something waiting out there, hidden just beyond the reach of her headlights? Suddenly, the lights flickered and went out. Absolute darkness swallowed the station, the hum of the world disappearing into a suffocating silence. Sarah's breath hitched in her throat, each heartbeat echoing in her ears. Alone, utterly alone, with only the sound of her racing heart and the shadows pressing in from the edges of her mind. Just as she reached for her phone, desperate to call home, she heard it. A soft rustling outside, followed by a whisper that sliced through the night air. "Sarah. Come closer." Panic gripped her. "What do you want?" She croaked, voice trembling, but even she knew there was no answer coming back. Then came that laugh, low, guttural, wrapping around her like a fog. No longer merely a figment, whatever held the shadows was real. She fought the urge to hide, heart pounding like a war drum. The lights flickered back on, revealing nothing but empty parking spaces, yet in her gut, she could sense it, a presence, an awareness. "Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Turning to the door, she peered into the dim night, where branches seemed to twist with a purpose, beckoning her to approach. Every instinct told her to run, but fear rooted her to the spot. Who was the Watcher? And why did he feel so close now? As she prepared to flee, she caught a glimpse beyond the edge of the trees, something dark, something that didn't belong. Terror swelled, engulfing her as she understood in that moment, this wasn't just a game. Something was coming for her children, for her, and whatever it was wouldn't stop until it got what it wanted. What now? Would she be able to save them before darkness consumed everything? The night bled deeper into shadows as Sarah's skin prickled with fear, every breath feeling like a lead weight in her lungs. Her gut twisted in response to the unseen threat that coiled within the woods. She had to act. Each moment spent idle could cost her everything. Sarah grasped the counter's edge, anchoring herself, fighting against the panic rising like bile. She edged toward the door but hesitated. What if she opened it and stepped outside, only to encounter whatever was lurking beyond? A lump formed in her throat as dread twisted in her stomach. The rustling intensified, crackling like dry leaves in the wind. She spun around to find Jacob's eyes wide, fear distilled in his expression. "You can't go out there," he pleaded, his voice rising in urgency. "You don't understand. It's not just watching, it's hunting." The sheriff's casual demeanor from before now haunted her thoughts, and a chill skittered up her spine. What did he know, and why was he here at this hour? It felt like he watched, waited, like he sensed the terror building in the air. She felt the weight of Jacob's stare, pulling her back into the dim light of the station. "You need to hide. Don't look at it, whatever you do. Just, stay inside," he urged, each word barely above a whisper. "Jacob, what have you seen?" Her voice shook, fear threading through her question. "It has eyes that know you," he gulped, "and they find you in the dark." Her pulse thudded in her ears, drowning out the rustling outside. But then, a sound sliced through the tension, a loud thump against the glass door. Sarah jumped, the sound reverberating like a gunshot. She held her breath, frozen. Jacob backed away, eyes wide. "It's here. Get behind the counter." He ducked down, pulling her with him. She wanted to remain brave, to be the strong mother, but darkness blanketed her resolve, pushing her down under its weight. The glass door quivered, the metal frame creaking as if something were testing its strength. She reached for her phone, no service. Just her frantic thoughts trapped in the small space. It felt like everything was pressing in, and she could barely think straight. Then came the sound again, a scratching, persistent, clawing. It seemed almost curious, like whatever was out there wanted to know her, to taste her fear. The laugh echoed again, louder this time, vibrating through the wood and into her bones. "What do we do?" she whispered to Jacob, her voice trembling. "We wait," he breathed, his eyes searching the shadows. "We don't let it know we're here." Silence hung for a breathless moment, then a savage snarl cut through the quiet. It was a sound that didn't belong anywhere on this earth, primal and guttural. Sarah shivered, her stomach rolling as instinct told her to flee, yet every nerve screamed at her to stay put. The lights flickered again, and for just one gut-wrenching instant, she could see it, a shape moving just beyond the door, folded and writhing like a nightmare made flesh, its eyes glinting like two slivers of obsidian. Terror seeped through her veins, freezing her in place. Then came the booming of footsteps, heavy and deliberate. Sarah's heart raced as she exchanged a terrified glance with Jacob, both of them knowing that hiding wasn't going to keep them safe. The door gave a soft, ominous creak. They were about to witness whatever horror had been waiting beyond the glass, and there was no way out. What did it want? And more importantly, would they survive to find out? The unmistakable sound of something attempting to breach the fragile sanctuary of the gas station echoed in the air. Just then, the lights flickered violently, plunging them back into darkness. And the whisper returned. "I'm coming for you." What would happen when it arrived? Would Sarah have the courage to confront the darkness? Could she protect her children, or would the Watcher claim everything she held dear? The darkness closed in tighter, a living thing around them as Sarah and Jacob crouched in the cramped space behind the counter. The silence was so thick it felt like they were submerged in heavy water, bubbles of fear rising from the pit of her stomach. The door shuddered again, another thud, this time closer. The sound echoed, a bone-rattling reminder that whatever lurked outside was no mere figment of imagination. The laughter returned, a cruel melody that played on the edges of sanity, each note a promise of dread. "What's happening?" Sarah whispered, her voice barely audible. She didn't want an answer. Still, Jacob's fearful eyes darted around, searching for a glimmer of hope in their grim reality. "It's testing the door," he breathed, trembling. "It's trying to see if it can get inside." Her chest grew tight with every heavy footfall. They were moments away from a confrontation she dreaded yet could hardly comprehend. The laughter turned into a rasping growl, deep and rumbling, like thunder rolling just above their heads. Sarah wanted to scream, to break the spell of stillness, but the primal instinct to stay quiet held her in a vice grip. Instead, she squeezed Jacob's hand as if it was a lifeline, the warmth of his skin grounding her amidst the cold dread. They were two survivors tiptoeing on the brink of disaster. Then, without warning, the glass door burst open, flying off its hinges. The world outside poured in, a flood of shadows and agony. The flickering lights cast ghostly shapes, illuminating a creature that defied description. It writhed, an amalgamation of limbs and eyes, too many for a single head to bear, and all of them glinting with malice. The shapeless mass twisted, curling like a serpent as it slipped through the shattered doorway. Its breath made the air electric, a gust that sent chills racing down Sarah's spine. It stopped short, its myriad eyes scanning the station, as if savoring the moment before the kill. "Sarah," Jacob whimpered, his voice cracking. But what could she say? There was nothing to say. The creature swayed, its body rippling like a dark tide. It seemed almost to listen, to revel in the tense air thick with fear. Then, it lunged forward, stretching its jagged mouth far too wide, revealing rows of jagged teeth glistening in the frail light. "Stay back!" she shouted, desperation igniting her voice as she pushed Jacob behind her. It was instinct. This was her son, and she would do anything, face anything, to keep him safe. Even a nightmare made flesh. The creature paused, considering her, and for a heartbeat, an unbearable silence hung in the air. Sarah stood her ground, every fiber of her being screaming to flee, but she couldn't afford to show fear. Not now. From among the shadows behind the creature, Sarah caught a glimpse of movement, a glimmer of silver, something still attached to the nightmare. The sheriff's badge. It lay at its feet, but it appeared tainted, twisted by dark magic, being swallowed in the folds of the being. Suddenly, it lunged, and adrenaline shot through Sarah's veins. She moved without thinking, lunging toward the fallen badge, instinct urging her to reclaim something once kept honorable. But when she reached for it, the creature's maw snapped toward her, revealing the abyss of its hunger. "Jacob!" she screamed, but there was only time for action. In a panic, she grabbed a nearby metal pipe, swinging it wildly as the creature surged. The impact of the blow sent vibrations up her arm, but it felt weak against the unimaginable force bearing down on her. The creature snarled, its grotesque form inching closer, eyes narrowing, calculating. She could feel the heat of its breath now, curling around her like a noose. With one last desperate swing, the lights above flickered and exploded, plunging them into true darkness. A laugh pierced the suffocating black, sending Sarah's heart racing faster than ever before. And then she felt it, the floor beneath her shift, as if the station itself was alive, responding to the horror that roamed its halls. "Get out!" Jacob's voice cut through the dark, but she was paralyzed, caught in the throes of a nightmare that wouldn't let her wake up. What had they unleashed, and could they truly escape the depths of its hunger? The whisper returned, now clearer than before, "You can't run from me." Sarah's heart thundered in her ears. They had to act fast. Would they find a way out of this darkness, or were they destined to succumb to the creature's merciless gaze? Terror surged through Sarah as she felt the floor convulsing beneath her. The darkness was a living entity, tightening around her like a vice. With her grip on the pipe tightening, she barely processed Jacob's desperate cry, "Mom!" A low growl reverberated in the shadows, vibrating through her bones. The creature had stopped moving, and she could hear the soft scraping of its multi-limbed body against the station's floor. Sarah knew it was coming closer, each sound sending ice through her veins. She took a shaky breath, trying to push down the panic threatening to swallow her whole. "Jacob, stick close," she urged, even as she pictured him stumbling around in the dark. Breathing so hard she struggled to control her thoughts, she squinted into the blackness for any sign of the thing hunting them. Every few seconds, she braced for a strike, flinching at the slightest noise. The flickering lights had gone out completely, leaving them alone with the beast and their shared terror. Sarah felt more than saw Jacob moving, inching closer to her, a shiver of dread coursing through them both. She needed a plan. "Wait," she whispered, listening carefully. There it was again, that slithering, silent movement. Then a laugh echoed, sharp and grating, cutting through the heaviness of the air. The sound wasn't just threatening, it was mocking. Each cackling note laughed at their impending doom. "Simon, what do we do?" Jacob's voice trembled. "Find something, anything," she urged. She couldn't let Jacob feel despair, her strength had to buoy them both. She remembered the metal pipe, a toy weapon against the darkness, but it was all she had. Suddenly, the floor surged again, no longer a mere vibration but a full-on heave. The lights flickered back on for a brief moment, illuminating the horror of the creature, its many eyes glistening with something she couldn't name: hunger, delight, and something deeper, more sinister. It was closer now, looming over them. She felt Jacob's hand slip through hers, startling her. She wanted to yank him back, to shield him, but the very floor beneath them seemed intent on dragging him into the depths of this nightmare. She swung the pipe again instinctively. The shadows around her warped, and the sound of metal striking something soft echoed as the creature lunged backward, screeching like a banshee. But in the next moment, the grasp of despair tightened around her heart as the lights flickered again, this time fading almost completely to darkness. "Slowly back up," Sarah hissed, her voice low and urgent. They could not let the creature corner them, it hunted like a skilled predator. She sensed Jacob nodding slightly, their hearts racing in sync, both driven by fear but also by the desperate will to survive. As they maneuvered silently, inching backwards, Sarah's gaze drifted to the shadows, seeking any escape routes. There, she thought, spotting the emergency exit sign at the far end of the room, a faint glimmer of safety in the chaos. But then she heard it. The low growl shifted, rising in tempo, morphing back into laughter, a twisted chorus that echoed around them. And as she glanced back, sure of the monster's position, an icy claw scraped against her shoulder, sending a paralyzing shock through her body. "Mom!" Jacob shrieked, his voice ragged. The creature lunged forward, its breath hot on her neck. She turned just in time, slashing with the pipe, sending it crashing against a sharp appendage. Sharp, horrid pain exploded through the darkness, and suddenly the laughter stopped, replaced by a deep, echoing growl that vibrated in her chest. "Now, Jacob! Run!" she shouted, shoving him fiercely toward the exit, but as they dashed away, the creature surged again, faster, stronger, a tangled mass of rage and hunger. With fear pounding in her ears, Sarah felt her heart shift into overdrive. Would they make it? Would the darkness consume them both before she could reach the door? In an instant, she felt the weight of the world collapse around them, as the thing burst through the darkness, towering over them, its multitude of eyes united in a cold, gleaming hunger. "Get out! Get out!" Jacob screamed again, but all Sarah could do was push forward into the unknown. Then, as they neared the door, a blinding flash of light erupted from the creature, illuminating a terrible truth. Each face in its writhing body bore a distinct expression of horror. The faces of those who lost to the darkness. "Jacob!" She yanked her son closer as a voice boomed, deep and guttural, vibrating through the air, "You will never escape." Fear clawed through her again as she reached for the handle, and with one desperate twist, she froze, realizing the handle was covered in a thick, writhing darkness, as if the station itself had turned against her. Would they be swallowed whole by the station, or did salvation still lie just beyond the door? The darkness pulsed around them, waiting. The moment hung heavy between them, a tangible shroud of dread threatening to swallow Sarah and Jacob whole. With her heart racing, Sarah's fingers found the cold, slick surface of the door handle, but the mass writhing around it twisted like a living thing, refusing to yield. "Mom, please!" Jacob's voice was a whisper now, edged with panic. They were standing at the precipice of doom, teetering on the edge of darkness with the creature bearing down on them, a menacing specter hungry for their failure. Time felt distorted, stretching and warping, every heartbeat echoing deafeningly in the oppressive silence that followed the creature's growl. "No!" she hissed at the door. "You can't take us." But as she pulled harder, an oily tendril coiled around her wrist, cold and full of malice. It seemed to laugh, taunting her with its grip. She grunted, desperately trying to shake it off, adrenaline coursing through her veins, igniting a fierce determination. With one sudden, sweeping motion, she raised the pipe again, adrenaline blurring her fear. It cracked through the darkness, striking a random part of the handling marred with shadow. The creature recoiled, its growl transforming into that mocking laughter once more, now louder, vibrating through the air with a bone-chilling resonance. Just a little closer, it taunted, its voice a low, wet rasp crawling up her spine. Each word rolled through the darkness like eerie thunder, heightening her terror. "Mom!" Jacob shrieked, pulling her back as she swung again, heart in her throat. "Keep going. Push!" Sarah shouted, her voice a shriek of raw fear and determination. They had to make it. The exit loomed close, but the creature it lunged again, a blur of shadows creeping in on all sides. Panic gripped her. Was there any hope left? She could barely breathe through the tightening band of terror. Behind them, the laughter swelled, mocking their struggle, and suddenly she felt the force of its bulk barge into her. "Hold on to me," she commanded, spinning toward him, but he was gone. The darkness swallowed Jacob whole, leaving her alone, lungs burning in terror. "Jacob!" She screamed, the echoes of her panic slapping back at her like a cruel joke. The laughter morphed into a cacophony of sounds, whispers, cries, and something else, hollering from the depths of the shadows. It twisted her stomach into knots, an instinctual fear that shrieked every warning through her mind. She gripped the pipe tightly as she searched the darkness. The emergency exit sign flickered, its light dank and feeble, revealing a narrow corridor behind her. "Jacob, where are you?" The station felt alive, twisting, shifting, as if the space around them was warping in concert with her dread. Shadows grabbed at her clothes, pulling her toward the abyss, but she pressed forward into the corridor, abandoning the door. With every step, the feeling intensified, 1,000 eyes boring down on her, waiting for the perfect moment to pounce. Her breaths came faster, jagged in her chest. "Please, please, Jacob." Suddenly, a soft whimper pierced through the heavy silence. Sarah's heart raced as she followed the sound, turning sharply into a side passage. "Mom!" The word was a tremulous ray of hope, echoing from the depths. She plunged forward, pushing harder through the darkness as the shrieks behind her ceased momentarily. The corridor stretched endlessly, twisting just like the fear in her mind. "Jacob, I'm coming!" she yelled. Then the lights flickered, exposing the creature hiding within the shadows, its glistening eyes staring straight at her, insatiable hunger radiating from it like a monstrous beacon. "Foolish girl! You will never leave." The voice crawled through the air, curling around her throat, but there it was again, the sound of her son's voice, a weak plea. She gritted her teeth, muscles tense as she continued down the hall, every nerve screaming for escape. Maybe there was an exit, maybe not, but she had to believe. Desperation fueled her forward, yet the darkness thickened, trapping her in its viscous grasp. She skidded to a halt, her breath hitching as she faced an ominous dead end. Above her was a door, unremarkable, dull. The air around it felt charged, crackling with an energy that raised the hair on her arms. "Jacob!" She pounded on the door, panic overwhelming her senses. Then, she felt it, cold air spilling from the edges, a whisper of freedom just out of reach. But would Jacob be there? With a battle cry, she threw her weight against the door, praying it would open into the light, and renewed hope flickered far away. Yet as it creaked open, darkness poured out like a flood, and an echoing laugh enveloped her. "Will you take what's behind door number 1, or will you let your child be consumed?" She stood, hesitant, caught in the crossing of choices and fear. In that moment, the darkness surged as if anticipating her decision, hungry and vast, ready to reclaim what it believed belonged to it. What would she choose? Would she know the truth, or would she be lost forever in shadows? The door creaked and opened wide, revealing a void so thick it seemed to pulse with anticipation, as if it were a living being craving a sacrifice. Sarah hesitated on the threshold, her heart pounding like a war drum. She swallowed hard, recalling Jacob's whispered plea that echoed in her mind, urging her forward. One last desperate glance over her shoulder revealed the creature, its twisted form slithering closer, shadows curling around its jagged frame. She could feel its eyes on her, and terror gripped her neck like a vice. She had to act. The choice was too stark to ignore, step into the unknown or fall prey to darkness. Taking a breath, she stepped over the threshold, the air inside the room colder than anything she had ever felt. It wrapped around her like an icy blanket, pressing against her skin. The door swung shut behind her with a boom that sent tremors down her spine. The space was raw and wild, full of jagged silhouettes. Flickering lights danced across the walls, creating wraith-like shapes, mocking her with their twist and turn. "Jacob!" She called again, her voice a steady resolve against the chilling howls creeping in. Her eyes strained against the darkness, searching for any sign of her son. In the shadows loomed a series of distorted figures, each one sending a jolt of fear through her heart. Was it her imagination, or were they drawing nearer, spectral arms reaching for her, seeking to ensnare her in their grip? "Jacob!" She shouted once more, louder this time, desperation crackling in her throat. Then, a figure stirred in the corner. "Mom?" Jacob's voice was faint, a thread of hope amidst the chaos. She turned, heart racing as she spotted him curled against the wall, his small frame trembling but alive. Relief washed over her momentarily, but it was short-lived as the shadows pressed closer, whispering promises and threats she couldn't decipher. She rushed to him, hoisting him into her arms, feeling his warm body seep hope back into her veins. "Let us get out of here," she urged, and he nodded, eyes wide with fear, but the moment of reprieve shattered when the creature burst through the doorway, a mass of darkness and sinew blocking their escape. The air thickened with dread as it hissed through sharp teeth, crashing against the walls like a tempest. "Foolish girl, you think you can escape?" Its voice echoed with a mocking timbre, chilling every bone in her body. Sarah turned, fearing the depths of this hideous lair, searching frantically for another exit. A glimmer caught her eye, a dim light flickered at the far end of the room, beckoning her closer. "Jacob!" she yelled, adrenaline spurring her forward, the bond of their survival igniting fire in her chest. They sprinted toward the light, but she could feel the darkness chasing them, cold tendrils reaching out, grasping at their heels. The creature roared, echoing off the stone walls, drowning out Jacob's cries. Her pulse quickened, a race against time and despair. When they reached the light, Sarah nearly tripped over a pile of scrap metal. Shouts of fear wrapped around her, threatening to pull her down as shadows swarmed in. "Mom! Move!" Jacob urged, tearing her thoughts back to the present. Sarah lunged toward the light, clarity kicking in as she spotted an old, rusted door. Would it lead to freedom, or another trap? The beast was gaining ground, its grotesque form swelling in the shadows. With a swift motion, Sarah threw the door open, and blinding light spilled forth, illuminating the horrors behind them, but in that moment, she saw something else, a glint of recognition in the swirling shadows. "Wait!" she cried before stepping through, but the door slammed shut behind them. Breathless and disoriented, they stood on a narrow staircase spiraling downwards. She hesitated, sensing the darkness coiling above them, ready to follow. What awaited them below? Would it be worse than the horrors of the gas station? As they moved further down, the air grew colder, heavier. Whispers of lost souls flickered around them, growing louder, teasing her sanity. What did we just step into? Her heart sank. Was escape really possible? The darkness felt insatiable now, each step echoing like a countdown to a fate she couldn't yet perceive. And then, just at the edge of her awareness, she heard it, a faint, sorrowful wail reverberating through the narrow passage, chilling her bones. It sounded hauntingly familiar. "Jacob?" she whispered, glancing down at him. But the answer lay in the shadows, waiting for its moment to spring forth. Would they find salvation at the end of the stairs, or were they entangled deeper in the creature's claws? With one last breath, she squeezed Jacob's hand tighter, driving herself into the darkness. What could possibly await them next? The sound grew louder, and whatever lay below began to beckon them closer. The stairs spiraled down, tight and suffocating, each step a muted thud that echoed against the stone walls. The wailing grew louder, wrapping around them like a cold shroud, pulling them deeper into its mournful grasp. Sarah strained to listen, her heart hammering in her chest. Was it the voice of someone she knew? "Mom, I don't like this." Jacob's small voice quivered, cutting through the chilling sound. His grip tightened around her hand, and she felt his body shaking against her. "Me neither, baby," she whispered back, forcing a reassuring smile she didn't feel. "But we have to keep going." With renewed resolve, they pressed on, the darkness closing in, suffocating her spirit. Exhaling slowly, she fought the rising dread clawing at her mind, her thoughts racing. Would they find a way out? What exactly was down there, waiting for them? The wailing shifted, morphing into a chorus of mournful cries, blending into a chilling harmony that sent electric shivers down her spine. Each voice seemed desperate, echoing their own tales of grief and longing, tales that twisted the pit of her stomach. "Mom, it sounds like Jacob started, eyes wide, but before he could finish, a flash of light flickered through a gap in the stone, illuminating their path ahead. Sarah's breath hitched. Was it hope, or merely another deception? She hesitated, then pushed forward. The stairway opened into a cavernous room, and at its center sat an old, wooden table, its surface scarred and covered in dust. Flickering candlelight danced across the walls, revealing creeping shapes and distorted faces that flickered in and out. Shadows loomed larger now, and the air felt heavier. The wailing intensified, piercing her thoughts. "What is this place?" Sarah breathed, scanning the room for any sign of clarity. Then she froze. At the far end stood a figure, a woman with long dark hair flowing like ink. Her face was obscured, but her mouth moved, forming silent words. "Mom." Jacob tugged at her sleeve, panic brewing in his small voice. "Is she okay?" "I don't know, honey." She stepped closer, curiosity battling her fear. But the moment she crossed the threshold, the shadows lunged at her like hungry wolves, grasping at her limbs. "Foolish girl, you disturb us." The chilling voice sliced through the air, resonating from the woman. For an instant, the chaotic wails ceased, the world tilted, and Sarah found herself staring into the depths of that shadowy figure. She felt an overwhelming mix of empathy and terror, as if the woman held centuries of sorrows trapped in her gaze. "Stop!" Jacob shouted. "Let her go." His tiny voice trembled with untold bravery. Sarah squeezed his hand, rallying whatever strength she had left. The shadows hesitated, and the woman emerged slightly from the darkness. "The price for your passage has not yet been paid. Do you wish to know the truth?" A lump formed in Sarah's throat. What truth? What would she have to sacrifice for it? As the question flickered in the back of her mind, she spotted ancient markings on the floor, glowing ominously. They pulsed, as if alive, pulling her in. "Jacob, we have to." But before she could finish, the shadows lunged forward again, raw and ravenous, consuming the light and closing the distance fast. "Mom!" Jacob screamed as the dark tendrils wrapped around him, pulling him away from her grasp. "No!" Sarah plunged forward, but the shadows enveloped him with unnatural speed. "Face the truth or lose him." The woman's voice drew closer, a wicked smile forming in the darkness. Desperation rose in Sarah's chest. What was she supposed to uncover? Suddenly, the shadows whispered her name, a toxic blend of familiarity and dread. Sarah, and then came the realization the truth wasn't what she thought it would be. It was far worse, lying in wait, ready to claw from the depths of her own soul. "Do you dare?" the woman taunted. What lay in the shadow was darker than she'd ever imagined. Would she surrender to that truth, or fight against it? With Jacob's scared face locked in her memory, Sarah made her choice, and the shadows tensed around her, eager for the final confrontation. The shadows writhed, pulling at Sarah with icy fingers. She felt their grip tightening around her ankle, dragging her toward the pulsing energy on the floor. Panic bubbled in her throat. She turned her gaze back to the woman, the dark figure now looming larger, an embodiment of her worst fears. Jacob. The sound tore from her lips, echoing into the oppressive silence. The room seemed to contract around them, stealing her breath. Where was her son? Did he truly understand the danger? She felt lost and heavy, like she was sinking into quicksand. Without thought, Sarah anchored her focus on the markings glowing beneath her feet. They appeared like veins, throbbing with a wicked vitality. Was the glow a key to understanding or a trap? The woman smiled, cruel, confident. You know what you must do. No, she gasped, pulling against the shadows with every ounce of strength she could find. Let him go. I won't pay any price. The woman laughed, a sound that turned Sarah's blood to ice. Foolish girl. He cannot be saved without understanding your own darkness. You want him back? Then reveal the truth that hides in your heart. In that moment, everything shifted. The air turned thick and the dim glow of the markings stung her eyes as she was brought abruptly closer to the dark woman. In the eerie stillness, she felt her past coiling around her like a serpent, constricting tighter with every heartbeat. Memories she had buried, regrets long suppressed clawed at her consciousness. Was it worth it? The shadows whispered, voices filled with accusations. Do you even know what he is afraid of? Shut up. She yelled, fear igniting within her, flaring into anger. I'm not afraid of you. I came here to rescue my son. Rescue? The woman's voice turned scornful, echoing off the stone walls, reverberating in the depths of her mind. Do you not see? You have shackled him, just as you have shackled yourself. Your past is intertwined with his fate. No! Sarah screamed, trying to fight against the encroaching darkness. Yet, the whispers grew louder, pricking at her heart and taunting her. Memories twisted into grotesque forms: her father's disappointment, the night her sister vanished, the times she felt not enough. But one memory shone through, bright as a beacon. Jacob's laughter filled her ears, his warmth flooded her mind. The way he looked up at her with wonder, trusting. Wine-colored shadows lunged for it, desperate to consume the light. I am not that woman anymore. She shouted with renewed determination, and suddenly, the shadows split, freeing her, if only for an instant. She skirted around the table, desperation propelling her forward. Jacob. She spun, and through the swirling darkness, she saw him fighting, squirming in the grasp of the shadows that had taken him. Mom. His voice sliced through her resolve. The dark woman stepped closer, her eyes narrowing. Face the truth or lose him forever, she hissed, the air thickening with malignant energy. The room trembled around them, dark undulating waves crashing together. One by one, the markings on the floor exploded with light, illuminating a path forward. This is the truth. The woman's voice echoed. Jacob is the truth. She yelled, heart pounding as she charged toward her son, aware that both shadows and light beckoned her. The light morphed into a blinding fury, and she stumbled, wrestling between shadows and the desperate cries for help. But in that moment of chaos, the realization struck like lightning: her own fear was her biggest adversary. Look into your heart. The woman cried, the shadows swirling hungrily toward Sarah. A choice. In that heartbeat, she knew: embrace her fears or lose everything. As she stood poised at the crossroads of light and dark, Sarah took a deep breath and stepped forward, ready to confront the haunting truth that stalked her soul. What would she truly discover once she embraced it, and would Jacob be waiting on the other side? The darkness thickened around Sarah, pressing against her skin like a suffocating blanket. She felt the warmth of the fading glow beneath her feet pulse in rhythm with her heart. Each beat turned her dread into a tangible form that clung to her tightly. The shadows writhed, and she knew this was at the moment where fear and despair collided head-on. "Jacob!" She screamed again, desperation clawing at her throat. The shadows slackened their grip momentarily, but it was only an instant. The dark woman grinned, her smile sinister and hypnotic. It felt like a trap, a web woven from Sarah's deepest fears. With renewed resolve, Sarah pushed forward, her heart racing. "I will find him. I will save him. You win." The woman's laughter echoed, taunting and twisted. "You think you can save him without facing what you've done? Your fears are the chains binding him." The truth behind those words slammed into Sarah like an avalanche. She stumbled back and raised her hands defensively, but something inside her snapped. No more playing the victim. The spectral tendrils lunged toward her, icy fingers grazing her skin. She winced but steadied herself, glaring at the woman. "I am not afraid of you. Fear is a weapon, dear. It's what keeps us together, binds us," the woman replied, her voice dripping with malice. "Face it. Would you leave your boy in this hell because you're too ashamed to acknowledge your past?" The shadows gathered, swirling frantically, eyes glinting like shards of glass in the dark. And then, out of nowhere, a voice surfaced from within the chaos, small and unsure. "Mom?" It was Jacob. "Jacob!" She lunged toward the sound, grasping for her son, heedless of the danger. "I'm coming. Hold on. Mom, it hurts. Make them stop." His cries tore at her heart, echoing the anguish that had plagued her since the day she lost him to this nightmare. Each word pierced her like a dagger, revealing raw truths buried beneath miles of regret. "I'm sorry." She yelled into the void, each syllable breaking her down, unraveling the fabric of her defense. "I didn't protect you. I was too lost in my pain to see what was happening, but I won't let that happen again." The shadows recoiled as if her confession had struck a blow. The markings beneath her feet flared brighter, and for the first time, she felt strength spilling back into her limbs. "Fight!" yelled the dark woman, her voice tinged with rage. "She would doom you. You are shadows, and shadows do not fight against their nature. I am more than this." Sarah shouted, clenching her fists tight. The light grew, illuminating memories, the regret over her sister's disappearance, the weight of abandoned dreams, and the guilt of her shortcomings. In each memory, she saw Jacob, his innocent smile, his lopsided grin, the joy he brought into her foggy existence. Suddenly, the energy shifted, gathering around her like a protective cocoon. "You are not darkness, you are love. You are hope." The voice resonated, a flicker of warmth spreading through her. The shadows shrieked, a high-pitched wail that pierced through the chaotic sounds of the room. As if sensing they were losing power, they surged forward, intent on reclaiming her, but Sarah stood firm, embracing her past instead of shying away. "You may have haunted me, but I am breaking free." The light erupted from her, an explosion that pushed the shadows away, spreading like wildfire through the room. The dark woman's triumphant expression faltered, her eyes widening with something akin to fear. "Jacob!" Sarah roared, reaching into the now swirling light, focusing on the voice that cast shadows of doubt. The light burst forth, swallowing the darkness surrounding them. For that fleeting moment, everything felt possible. She felt the embrace of warmth, a connection stronger than any shadows twisting in fear. Then, darkness coiled tighter, the feeling of something slipping from her grasp. "Mom! Don't let go." The last echo of Jacob's voice rang through her, fraying her resolve as she stared into the whirlpool of light and dark. In the heart of this battle, what would she discover about herself, and could she find Jacob before it became too late? The light shimmered, breaking through the darkness like a dawn in the depths of night. Sarah felt the vicious grip of fear begin to loosen its hold as she focused on the warmth, a tangible thread connecting her to Jacob. She could feel him there, right on the edge of her reach, and each heartbeat urged her forward. A gem of clarity broke through despair. She was not just a bystander in this nightmare. All those memories of love and pain passed through her like the flickering of a candle, illuminating the path ahead. "I will not let the dark consume us," she shouted, as a wave of determination filled her. The shadows shrieked, retreating from the burgeoning light. With each step she took, the room pulsed around her, shadows receding like water from a shore. The cries of loss concealed beneath layers of regrets faded, replaced by the warmth of her love for Jacob. Every laugh, every hug, every tear that had created a bond stronger than any darkness. "Stay close," she cried, voice echoing back at her. "Mom, the light. It's so bright." Jacob's small voice cut through, a beacon in the chaos. With one last push, Sarah broke through the swirling mass of shadows, her body flooding with light that threatened to consume her. She stretched her hand forward, reaching for the sound of his voice, her heart pulsing fiercely in her ears, desperate to bridge the gap. The creature let out a guttural roar, its eyes wide with terror at its waning power. "You cannot escape. You belong to the darkness," it howled, but Sarah would not falter. "Jacob!" she shouted again, bursting through a veil of fear. She felt his tiny hands wrap around hers, and in that moment, joy bloomed. An electric current of hope surged through them, igniting her every nerve with the strength she had to protect him. Everything exploded around them. The shadows flared, their icy voices fading into whispers of nothing as light engulfed them both. It was a cosmic push-pull, and in the brilliant core of warmth, Sarah felt herself lift. They were rising above the depths, above the swirling chaos, toward safety. The last flickering remnants of darkness slipped away as they soared into the blinding radiance. Then, it all came crashing down, and they found themselves in the gas station once more, chest heaving, tears of relief mingling with disbelief. "Mom! Are we safe?" Jacob whimpered, eyes wide, searching her face for answers. "Yes, baby. We're safe." The gas station appeared normal, and the choking grip of fear released its hold. Outside, the moon cast a gentle glow across the lot as if the universe sighed with relief. As they stumbled out of the station into the cool night air, a gentle breeze whispered through the trees, promising renewal. They were alive and together. "We faced the darkness," she declared softly, holding him close. "And we won." But as they walked, Sarah noticed something fluttering in the grass, a police badge shimmering under the moonlight, untouched and untainted, a remnant of the evil they had escaped. She knelt to pick it up, her fingers brushing over the once lost symbol of safety. It was now a reminder of survival. As they turned toward home, each step was lighter. With every heartbeat, their bond grew stronger, illuminated against the fabric of a quiet night. "Mom?" Jacob asked, glancing up at her with that same spark of hope he always had. "Yes, sweetheart. Did we really beat the darkness?" Sarah breathed deeply, looking back at the gas station. "We may never know when it will come back, but we stood up against it. We can face anything together." She squeezed his hand tighter, a promise nestled in every word. The world felt brighter, filled with possibilities and uncharted adventures, and she knew they would thrive beyond the shadows. In the stillness of the night, the stars twinkled above, reminders that even the darkest nights would eventually yield to dawn. So as this story ends, let it be a reminder that every darkness holds a light. And no matter how dire the situation, love, hope, and courage will always shine through. Now, this is what I want you to do. You need to subscribe now to catch the next exclusive stories that we have lined up. Don't miss a thing. Smash that like button right now. It's how you can help spread the word and feed the algorithm. Flood the comments section below with your reactions and theories about the ending. We want to hear from you, and don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Your support matters, and only true fans understand the importance of these actions.